I found out my sister has been fucking my boyfriend behind my back, so I get even. I have never, ever thought I would be telling this story on Reddit of all effing places, but since I've been seeing everyone share their revenge stories, I got a little inspired, so I thought I would share mine. Beware, long-ass story ahead. A little backstory first. I was born into a broken family, and my father was a drug addict. My mother, on the other hand, was the kindest, strongest woman I know. Fortunately, they separated just after the birth of my younger sister, who was only younger than me by a year. I took after my mother. My sister, though, apart from my mother's looks, she got everything else from dad. Now the thing is, my father was a horrible person even before he became a drug addict. He was an arrogant, selfish, insufferable person, and not only that, he also cheated on my mother multiple times while she was pregnant with me and my sister, and he also physically abused her. He was so horrible to the point that when he left, my mother said that it was the happiest day of her life. She continued raising us, all by herself, while my dad went to God knows where. And you know what? I have never even missed him. 18 years later, and me and my sister are all grown up, and the thing is, we've never really been that close. We fought a lot when we were younger, but it was all usual sibling fights. As we grew, we fought less and less, and we were able to coexist as all siblings do, and though I didn't express it all the time, I did love her. Here's where it all goes to hell. In my senior year of high school, I started dating one of my classmates. He had just transferred during that year and said that he liked me immediately and asked me to go out with him if I was interested. I give the guy a chance. It goes extremely well, and just 2 months later we were officially dating. He was sweet, would treat me to lunch, take me to places, and was just a great boyfriend overall. We continued to date through our first year and second year of college, and he comes over at our house pretty frequently, and my mom even lets him stay the night. It came to the point that he would come there even when I wasn't, and I thought nothing of it. I was even glad that he felt so comfortable there. Until one day, just a month before our anniversary, I texted him that I would be home later than usual because I still had something to do in school. I was already at my 3rd year and I was busier than I was before. Since we usually go home together, he asks me what time do I think I'll be home, and I said probably after dinner so he can pick me up then. He says okay. Fortunately, though, I managed to finish earlier than I thought, and instead of texting him to pick me up, I decided to surprise him by coming to his house since it's been a while since we spent time together and I missed him. When I got there, his sister was visibly confused and immediately asks me what I was doing there. I told her that I was there to see her brother, and she becomes even more confused and said he told me he was coming to your house to see you though. He left hours ago. This time I'm the one who's confused, and so I quickly turned around and went home. Thankfully, our houses were only 15 minutes apart from each other, so I got there quickly. The next 20 minutes were like hell. I come home to find his bike outside. The house was dark, and I try my best to go inside as quietly as I could. By the time I got up the stairs, I hear it. Moans, female and male. The male one sounded particularly like my boyfriend. Tears immediately flooded my eyes. I didn't even need to see to know it was him, my boyfriend of almost 3 years, fricking my sister. My feet suddenly have a mind of their own, and I yanked the door open. I was seething at this point. The bee was riding him like a mechanical bull. I stood there as my now ex pushes her off of him, shocked as he puts his clothes back on at light speed and starts spewing excuses. I wasn't listening at all. I was sobbing so much I couldn't breathe. The jerk follows me all the way downstairs, and I yell at him that if he doesn't leave that instant, I would tell his entire family. He leaves, and I was left with my sister. I couldn't even look at her. I stayed downstairs calming myself down until my mom came home from work. She immediately notices something is wrong, but I don't tell her yet. Dinner starts, and I felt like crying again. And you know what's even worse? When my sister came down and sat just across from me, I saw no hint of remorse or guilt on her face. Absolutely none. I felt sick, I wanted to vomit, and I swear that at some point during dinner, the evil bee even smirked. A week comes by and I don't say anything. I was so hurt. My ex wasn't saying anything too. No phone calls, texts, nothing. And so did my sister. Not a single sorry. I felt so defeated. I was crying multiple times a day, and I couldn't even focus in school. One day I finally snap, and I tell my mother everything. She was extremely disappointed. She scolds my sister, but she didn't even seem to care. And then suddenly I remembered my ex had told me his passwords. He had told me early in our relationship, and I never bothered to open them cause I was never the type to go through my significant other's messages. I trusted the jerk, and this is what I get. Anyway, I managed to open his messenger app, and there I see hundreds of messages between him and my sister. I felt weak in the knees. It had been going on for almost 4 months then. I took screenshots. It turns out they had been going out while I would be at school. All three of us were from different schools. My sister couldn't get into mine because her grades were too low, and so was my boyfriend's. My pain quickly turned into anger, and I wanted nothing more than to make them both pay. I couldn't stomach the sight of my sister. The fact that she would go behind my back like that over some guy made me sick. We were supposed to always be there for each other. After a month, I asked my mother if I can move out and leave with my aunt for a while because I just couldn't take it anymore. She was sad, but she understood. I felt so sorry for her. She held my sister accountable for what she did, but at the end of the day, she was still her daughter, so she can't completely turn her back on her. I didn't want to give her the burden of having to choose, so I did instead. So I move out and leave with my aunt and promise to keep in touch. The next 6 months were basically me putting myself back together. I became a working student and did some freelance work to earn some money, and as I started to earn more, I dropped out of school completely and became a full-time freelancer. As the months went by, I would earn more, and I had more than enough money to spend for myself. And from then on, I started to send money to my mom monthly. One day, I got curious and decided to check on my sister and ex. When I unblocked them, I regretted it instantly. The jerks were still together, and my sister was even flaunting their relationship on Instagram. Suddenly, it was as if no time has passed by at all, and I was angry yet again. I scrolled through more pictures, and it was obvious that my sister was completely in love with him. I acted in anger. I sent the screenshots I took from before and sent them to our cousins and told them everything. They all ended up hating her. And then I sent it to my ex's sister and also told her everything. She punched him and tells their parents, and a day later, I receive a text from them apologizing on behalf of their son. It made me feel slightly better. A week later, my mom asks me to come home to spend the weekend. I decided to say yes this time. I stopped by a mall on the way to get a gift for my mom, and guess who I see? My ex-boyfriend with a girl who wasn't my sister. They're holding hands. I laugh hard. The urge to take out my phone to take a picture and send it to my sister was so strong, but I stopped myself. It wouldn't be painful enough. So I hide where he can't see me and followed them. After about an hour, she goes to the bathroom. I follow her there. I approach her when she comes out of the cubicle and say, "Is the guy you're with your boyfriend?" She looked a little bit scared and confused, but she answers yes. Nonetheless, I quickly tell her that the same guy is currently dating my sister and even showed her some pictures. The girl was completely horrified. She said she had no idea that he was seeing someone else, and I fought the urge to laugh. I tell her to get rid of him quickly, and I'll tell her everything she needed to know, but also asked her not to dump him yet. So she makes up some excuse to him about an emergency at home, and they go their separate ways for the day. We meet up at a coffee shop close to the mall afterward. There, I spill everything, including all the details about the cheating. When I finished, she looked so mad, almost as if it happened to her. And then she goes on to reveal that a longtime boyfriend of hers actually cheated on her as well. We talked some more, and as time passed by, I came to discover that the girl was actually really sweet, and I felt sorry that she became a victim of my ex as well. She asked me if I was gonna get revenge, and I said yes, but I needed her help. But I also told her she could say no if she didn't want to, but she said she wanted to help. So I told her my plan, and she was all for it. I came home that night excited. My mom seemed pleased, and my sister looked a little pissed. I didn't give a damn though, since I had the knowledge that my ex-boyfriend, the guy she destroyed our relationship for, was on his way to destroy her. The girl and I talked for the next 3 weeks I was there, and she would send me screenshots of her and my ex's convo, and also pics of them together. We continued to talk even after I came back to my aunt's house, and exactly 2 months after we met, the plan was finally in action. It was a week before my ex and my sister's anniversary, and I was about to give her the greatest gift. By that time, my ex had confessed to the other girl about his relationship with my sister, but she told him that it was okay and that they could still be together because she didn't care. Little did he know, she and I were basically best friends now and had come up with a master plan to ruin his life. I come home again and spent the week there leading up to their anniversary. It was the longest week of my life. The day finally comes, and after my sister leaves to go to his house, I wait a few hours. Then I FaceTime his sister to ask if the two jerks were home, and she says yes. Then I send it. Dozens of pictures of my ex with the other girl and screenshots of their conversation. Ones where he was telling her how much he loves her and how he's planning to leave my sister for her soon. There was one where he even expressed how annoying he found her and that he sometimes wants to strangle her. A whole bunch of other screenshots where he insults her, calls her stupid, desperate, and many more. He also said that she was awful in bed and was way too noisy, and that he barely touched her the past few days. Ouch. But it wasn't enough for me. The final touch was a 3-minute long video of my friend and my ex doing it, and she was on top. Exactly how I found my sister and ex before, and she was riding him to oblivion. But I cropped it so her face wasn't shown, but my ex was in full view. It was hilarious. The jerk was enjoying it so much, and I know my sister would probably have a seizure once she watches it. Afterward, I wait. I was still on FaceTime with his sister, and after a while, her and I hear it. Screaming, objects being thrown, more screaming. His sister comes upstairs to check on them, and I hear everything. My sister was sobbing, and what's even more messed up is that my ex didn't even try to deny any of it and asked her to just leave. Her sister and I talk some more, and she tells me how she's never liked my sister, and so did their parents. They said that they would ignore her whenever she would come by at their house. She would even ask about me sometimes just to piss her off. After about an hour, my sister finally comes home, and I sat there grinning like a devil as she steps into the living room, face puffy from crying. We make eye contact, and I smirked at her and said, "You deserve it," before going upstairs. I don't speak to her again, and for days she refused to even leave her room. The satisfaction I felt was through the roof, and I even told my mom that I could move back in now. But it didn't end there, because it turns out my ex had gotten my sister pregnant. A huge part of me wasn't shocked. But my mom was, of course, disappointed. We had to tell the rest of our family, and they were all disappointed with her as well. Before she gave birth, my sister told my mom she was going to move in with my ex's family since they have to take care of their baby, and my mom refused to let him step foot in our house again. But since our houses were really close to each other, she agreed. It was pathetic. It was obvious that she still wanted to be with him even after everything he did, but hey, it wasn't my problem anymore. But according to my ex's sister, though, her parents weren't too happy about the whole thing, and although my ex said he would take responsibility for his child, he didn't want anything to do with my sister anymore. What a jerk. So I continued to live my life, working, going out, and focusing on becoming even better. It didn't take long for me to finally be happy again, and all the pain and betrayal felt like a distant memory. I reconnected with my old friends and even started dating again. I also kept in touch with the girl who helped me with my revenge. She, of course, has dumped my ex and broke up with him just the day after it all went down, and we're genuinely good friends now and meet when we can. I don't keep in touch with my sister at all, but according to my ex's sister, she's absolutely miserable because she had to drop out of school, and my ex barely spoke to her and would always be gone, sometimes for days, and even brought home girls on multiple occasions and left them in that same house my pregnant sister was in. He also wasn't there when she gave birth. I didn't feel sorry for her at all since she chose to stay with him, but I did feel sorry for the kid for having those two jerks as his parents. They would go to our house at least 3 times a week to see my mother, and my sister would completely ignore my existence. Guess what? She still hasn't apologized. I didn't really care at that point, so I ignored it. But one time, I kindly offered to buy her baby some clothes, and she fixed me with the nastiest look before saying, "We don't need your money." I was appalled, and then I was pissed again. All right then, if that's how she wanted to play. Funnily enough, I run into my ex at a bar just a couple of days later. He looks terrible, and I questioned what I even saw in him. He sees me and actually looks happy. I, on the other hand, no longer felt anything for him, only disgust. He tries to make conversation, telling me I looked great and even apologizes. I was shocked, but his apology didn't really mean to me anymore. Later that night, I receive a bunch of messages from him. He was apologizing again and then went on to say how much he regrets cheating on me before begging for another chance and swearing that this time, things would be different and that he was going to change for me. I laughed so hard, I fall off my bed. The ocean would dry up before I'll even think about taking his ass back. But since my sister pissed me off once again and I was feeling a little petty, I sent her the screenshots of those messages with the caption, "This your baby daddy." I knew she was still in love with him even after everything, and I knew that it would hurt her to see how he's willing to change for me, but not for her, the mother of his damn child. He barely even gave her money for their child. It was only ex's parents and my mom who supported her financially. She blocked me. And no, I don't ever take my ex back. Last I heard, he started using drugs. Fast forward to now, I continue to thrive while she continues to be miserable. We recently had a family reunion, and at one point she says to our relatives that she's having a hard time, and one of our cousins looks at her dead in the eyes and says, "Well, maybe if you hadn't effed your sister's boyfriend, you wouldn't be in this position." She was absolutely dumbfounded, and there were tears in her eyes, and I almost choked on my wine to keep from laughing. She probably didn't think they knew. Well, now she does, and they all didn't bother to hide how much they despised her. She had no one on her side and was considered the disappointment of the family, but she only has herself to blame. By the way, if anyone gets confused about why we still lived with our parents during college, I am Filipina and this happened in the Philippines. Here, we don't move out until we have kids, and sometimes not even then, lol. Some people don't believe, and honestly, I understand, lol. I wish it was fake. Truly, this particular event has caused so much stress on our entire family, but I do get some of you all. About the girl who helped me, I was actually really shocked myself with how willing she was to participate. There definitely had been times where I was scared she would out me to my ex and sister, but I guess it all just reminded her of her situation with her ex, and she also seemed mad about being made into a side chick. I didn't expect she would send a video. I asked her so many times if she was sure. My ex was a horrible person, but he was attractive and good in bed, as much as I hate to admit. She basically used him for sex, and I don't find anything wrong with that. He deserved it. And TBH, I would have done the same if it was the other way around. I get why it might seem made up, but I've literally witnessed much wilder things happen. I had a friend who got sent a video of her then boyfriend and another girl effing as well. The girl sent it cause she wanted her BF to herself. It happens more frequently than one might think. These girls can be messy these days, but again, I get why it might seem unbelievable. Believe what you want. It's not like it would affect any of us negatively. What's done is done. Have a good day. Now let's see what the community has to say. Opinion number 1 says, so in short, she is a broke college dropout single mom mooching off her own mom and baby daddy's parents while desperately pursuing said deadbeat drug addict baby daddy who wants nothing to do with her. Well, your sister has issues. I would feel slightly bad for her if she showed any remorse whatsoever. But no, she made this bad Sunday, that is her life, and now she has to eat it. I do feel for that child though. Hopefully, your mom and the other parents take a more active role in the kid's life. And the cherry on top of that sundae is that baby daddy wants you over her, even though again, she is the mother of his child. That must eat her up on the inside. Opinion number 2 says, yeah, I might have almost felt sorry for the sister, except she showed absolutely zero remorse or even any sense of accountability for her own actions. So F her, she deserves everything she got. Opinion number 3 says, OP, imagine that. The one who does her boyfriend's homework ends up with a high grade. Good for you. I'd like to offer this, though. It's an impossibility to forgive someone who thinks she doesn't need it because in her mind, she's done nothing wrong. No forgiveness is possible on your part until she acknowledges her faults. Even then, forgiving her remains optional. However, trust is earned. She broke 17 years of trust with a blood sister over a boyfriend when there are literally millions of other boys out there. I'm fairly certain I would view her through this lens forevermore, never trusting her with anything, be it loved ones or possessions. I know she was young, but her character and personality were carved in stone by then, and she proves herself unchanged with her ongoing lack of remorse. Something made her go after you in the first place, probably jealously. She will be even more jealous now. Where she is concerned, keep your back to the wall and your eyes wide open. Even if you do something like babysit for her child, you'll open yourself to charges of child neglect, abuse or whatever. Just have no dealings with her. She's got ice in her heart, and it's her turn for revenge. Best to you. How about you guys? What do you think? Would you have done the same as the OP on that situation? Was the revenge justified? Leave a comment down below, and let's see what others think. Story 2. My half-sister from my father's infidelity is now begging me for money for her life-threatening sickness, and I refused. When I was 25, we found out that my father had been cheating on my mother for years, and he had a 7-year-old daughter with his mistress. In one split second, the happy family I knew was gone, and I went through the darkest time in my life. My parents divorced, and per their prenup, my mother walked away with most of their assets, especially since she also contributed more to the family incomes. She never forgave my dad for what he did and never talked to him again, though she grudgingly allowed me to have whatever relationship I wanted to have with him. I eventually forgave my dad mostly because I was tired of carrying so much anger and hurt in my heart. I talked to him, but I want nothing to do with his mistress or my half-sister. My mother died last year and left me everything. Her money, her real estate assets, and her business, which I now own and operate. I am in a relatively comfortable financial position while my dad is getting by. He was never a good businessman on his own and lost a lot of his money on businesses that later went belly up. This year, my half-sister was diagnosed with a life-threatening sickness, and she has been in the hospital for the last 4 months. The bills are mounting, and my dad came to me for help because they are now in a situation where they are finding it difficult to come up with money for my half-sister's treatment. The thing is, I don't want to use my mother's money to pay for the treatment of the child her husband had with his other woman. Though it's not my half-sister's fault, it feels so unfair when I think that the money my mother worked hard all her life for will go to a child that neither my mother and I have any responsibility towards, and the very same child of the man and the woman who hurt her so much at that. I'd really rather use it to grow her company, and let my dad and my half-sister's mother figure out how to get money for her treatment. They are her parents after all. The only thing tying me to her is my father saying she is your sister, and if she dies because she didn't get the treatment she needs, would you be able to sleep at night? Am I the jerk? Now let's see what the community has to say. Opinion number 1 says, NTA, your dad cheated on your mother and now wants to guilt trip you into caring for a child that he helped create. Your dad, the guy who ruined his marriage and pretty much any good relationship with you. It's sad for the little girl, but you have no obligation to her, and unfortunately that's the reality. She's not someone you know, I assume, or ever had any relationship with. Opinion number 2 says, NTA, basically answer this question: if she was a stranger and someone close to you came to you and asked for financial help, what would you do? The honest answer is probably you would donate some cash to a GoFundMe or use your resources to take a day to try and find them help, but you would not outright pick up the tab. And that's fair. Heck, it's fair even if she was your sister you grew up with in your happy little family that no longer exists. At the end of the day, the real jerk here is someone is dying. There may be treatment, and whether or not she gets it is a product of wealth. And I'm not trying to be political, I'm just saying that you having money should not really matter when it comes to whether she lives or dies, so that's not a burden that should be put on you. And sure, your dad may think that, but he is desperate looking for something to save his kid's life. Opinion number 3 says, I will go against the grain here and say YTA. As a human being with feelings, don't you have the instinct to help another human being? Sure, the backstory makes this situation a bit difficult, but the child is not at fault for your father's bad decisions. What would you do if it was just a random person in need? Wouldn't you want to help just a little bit? You said you live a comfortable life, yet this child has to think about dying because her parents don't have enough money. I think any person, including your mother, would rather help a dying child than a growing company. But maybe this is just a cultural thing, as I think it would be my first instinct to help a person and then think about everything else. How about you guys? What do you think? If you're in that position, would you do the same thing as OP? Or would you still help the product of your father's infidelity? Leave a comment and let's discuss down below. If you enjoyed it, maybe subscribe and leave a like. It will help my channel a lot and motivate me to make more for you. Thanks for listening and take care.